This episode is brought to you by Henry the Adjuster. Honesty when you need it the most.
All right, so Lynn, what's your position on a 6-week abortion?
So what's my position on it? Same as my 15 week one.
Yeah, same as my 15 week. Well, I think six is a little, I mean, okay, so I think it's going to be hard to get it passed, and a lot of people are going to be a little unhappy about it. But the truth is, like, I think I don't know, I was watching, Glenna Milberg was talking about like the statistics, and she said something around like most people, I think it's 74% of the people who get abortions actually do it within the 6 weeks. So, I mean, there's been arguments about it. Of course, like people think that, sometimes, one of the representatives that was interviewed on her show said that like she had IVF done, and she found out that the kid was going to be born with abnormalities, and she was very heartbroken that she had to take her baby out, and so on and so forth. But I don't think it's for us to judge like who gets to live or not live. So even if a child is going to have congenital issues,
anything
right,
anything.
any issues, right? Like I think any living thing wants to live, right? You try to step on an ant and it still tries to wiggle its way out, right? I mean, like,
Right.
come on, like every living thing. So
Right.
it shouldn't be our decision to let a life live or not. So that's my take on it. If the baby's not going to survive because it has issues and it's in the womb, it ties itself with the umbilical cord, it dies, there's so many ways to die. Like we don't need another way where a person is dictating that. But that's my stand, because it also comes from, certain religious background that I believe in. I think life starts at conception. So, I mean, it's just, there was a comedian who was saying like, if you bake a cake, there's a batter, you put it in the oven for like, 40 minutes, and then it comes out as a cake, right? So if you take it out in the fifth minute and you throw it out, then the cake is there's no cake. So basically, like that's where I stand. What about you, Bill?
According to BJM.com,
BJM. What's
No comments.
BJM?
I don't know. I just
know
Googled some newsroom here, and BJM.
Oh, is it Black Justice
anyway.
Matters or?
Yeah. So 9 out of 10 abortions are done between 6 and 12 weeks. And
So
there's
how
there's one below it. The
6 to
19th
12?
news says 6 and 13 weeks. Most of these abortions are happening pretty early, because after the consensual sex is over and they realize they could be pregnant, right? They take a test and then they go and get it done. The problem I have with it is, the Democrats and the far left, all they do is talk about, your woman's rights. If you got raped, incest, human trafficked or whatever, you're taking that right away from us. But nobody's talking about that. It's really only less than 1% of the population that happens to. But they build a whole narrative based on something that sounds very scary and something that, sounds like you're taking away our rights, right? So
No, I also hear another option is like married couples who don't want to have kids anymore. There's a lot of that too.
yeah, well then go tie your tubes.
Yeah,
exactly.
but I
There's
mean,
that
like they don't
option.
want to do that. That's why. So
Right.
they use abortion as a means of birth control.
Yeah,
But the whole point is like, if you're active or not, right? So if you're not active, then there's no need for it. But the thing is, like, we feel the need to speak for everybody else, and
Right.
and the thing is, like, it's let's say this is the way it is, then it's the way it is, and there are safe ways to get abortions, and go to New York, California if you want a late term, right? Because they'll do it up to, I don't know, point of birth or
It's like anything else, Lynn. You
The Val
can't.
Demings Clinic of abortion.
Right,
clinic.
like you can't drive on the sidewalk. Oh my God, but I want to drive on the sidewalk. Like what there's already an agreement, right? There's an agreement that you can't drive on the sidewalk. And I know it's a whole different thing. And I'm saying that because it's such a different thing, that we're talking about a human life here. So
Well, you can't. It's like anything else. Everybody wants to have their cake and eat it at the same time.
mhm.
If you know you're going to go and have sex and you're not protected, you run the risk.
Yeah.
Right? You get pregnant. Well, you should have to deal with the pregnancy.
Yep.
You shouldn't just be able to throw it away. It's a life now. You created another life inside your body. To be
Mhm,
able to just say, I don't want it no more, I'm going to throw it away is just ridiculous.
mhm.
Right? Now you're just killing a life that you created because
I mean,
you were
it's
just,
not like we-
you couldn't control yourself.
Right.
And you had to jump in bed.
irresponsible. It's not like we all
Right.
didn't take sex ed in middle school. I mean, middle schoolers know
You
what
take,
happens when
you take sex ed in the streets. What are you talking about? More than that. before you even get to school.
Well, yeah, the
Now
unofficial.
they've got
class, but
twerking
the-
and everything on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. All these things. So people at this point, by the time you're 12 years old, you should know what happens if you have intercourse.
No, the
The
thing is,
potential-
girls, when they start to get their period, right? I mean, like there
Mhm.
should be some kind of maternal education, or somebody should talk to the kid about that, and that
Usually
means
it's
that
the
their
mom.
their fertility is already there. But I mean, like
Uh-huh.
it does boggle me a little bit, right? Because there are some people who actually get pregnant at 10 because they were raped. So
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know that if it's if menstruation is actually the cutoff time.
The
You
stuff-
know what I mean?
Right. Mhm.
So, and this
See,
is
that girl
this
would
is
fall
where
into
I'm
that
sorry.
1%.
This is where I think where I think education, for people, this is where it comes into play, right? Like if they
Mhm.
are 10 and they get raped and so on and so forth, and I think that I haven't read the bill yet, but I don't know if that 6 week has exceptions for rape, incest, and all that too. But I know
mean,
that they're going to put in more funding into education, because I think they should educate people on the repercussions of getting an abortion.
Now I don't want to, because I want to make sure it's clear. I'm not insensitive to people who are victims of rape, so I just want to be clear on that before I say what I'm
Yes,
going to say.
absolutely.
But if you are raped, you know that there's a potential for you to be pregnant. I would say within that 6 week time period, you have test after test after test to confirm whether or not you're pregnant, or the Plan B thing, the Plan B pill to kind of clear that air out of the way. So the 6 week option is really like you. At that point in time, you've gone 6 weeks with knowledge that you had intercourse potentially to be pregnant. There's no surprise in 6 weeks. For
Well,
anyone.
I mean, like since what you were saying, you want to be sensitive.
Mhm.
I also want to mention, like, people who have been raped may be traumatized
Mhm.
and may
True.
not think about actually getting that, or they may not tell anybody, so that people
Okay.
can actually help them.
Mhm.
Like, hey, take a pregnancy test. Hey, go check out a doctor. I mean, they might just keep it under wraps, right? And
Mhm.
then potentially like maybe get pregnant and not realize it, still traumatized, haven't gotten a pregnancy test. I mean, like there are
Mhm.
issues like that. But I don't know, when something traumatic like that happens, right?
Mhm.
I'm not sure why we're not taught to actually speak up.
Because it's societally speaking, we're taught to kind of shame that situation.
I
or
mean,
that
we're not
experience
in the 1800s anymore. I mean, like
We're not exactly.
things
We're-
like
we're
this
not.
happen, and the thing is, the perpetrator should be,
Brought to light immediately, and this is something that the victim can do if they kind of address it. I mean, and again, I understand the trauma behind it and the hesitancy to address it. But again, my point being is that within a 6 week time period, you knew what happened. You can't get to a Plan B pill. You can get to all these other things.
I think the
within-
Plan B pill is going to be illegal now. Is
is
it?
it?
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I think it should be an option for those who again, it's Plan B, and I'm not upset at Plan B at all. It's an option in case, okay, I made a dumb mistake, or this is a situation of rape, and immediately address it without having to wait till a life develops in someone to
But
say,
I think
yeah,
it
I'm gonna
doesn't
terminate.
work 100% either. I think I've heard people do that, take it
Mhm.
and still get pregnant.
Is there like a window? Well, we've got to do some more research on this whole, how
I
it
know.
works. But that's
There's
one
nothing
thing.
that's 100%, other than keeping your legs closed, and that's it.
Well, but in terms of rape victims, okay, we can understand, but at the same time,
I think
within
abstinence
6
is
weeks.
so underrated, right? I mean, we talk about sex, like, I mean, look at all the sexual books and all the art, all the X-rated information that kids get access to. They don't
Mhm.
quite have the same access to, like, abstinence, right? Like, what's the great thing about, like, not having sex before marriage? Like,
No
like,
STDs, no
right? Yeah.
pregnancies,
And
no
yeah.
heartbreak from boyfriends and
No,
girlfriend
so
situations.
actually the aftermath is actually a big thing. It determines whether you're going to be in a happy marriage, right? It determines whether you're going to have a healthy sex life with your partner.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, this is so underrated. It hasn't been talked about. I mean, I hear about this because, I mean, there are some Orthodox, Jewish friends that I have, and they actually they talk about, like, abstinence, right? No sex
Mhm.
before marriage. The only person they ever had sex with was their wife or their husband, and they
Mhm.
have a very healthy sex life with each other. Because there's also, like, none of that comparison, right? None of that, like, oh, this wasn't like that or that wasn't like this, and, like, I like it that way and I like it this way. And I mean, like, that's important because, like, the the fun in the sexual activity, but I mean, the sexual activity is actually just what's it called? It's temporary. How many years can you have fun versus, like, having a healthy relationship for the rest of your life, right? It's more than
I think it's
half that you're going to be doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And having one partner and, like, being completely, like, with each other. So, I mean, that's something that wasn't talked about.